never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Please press the like and subscribe button down there. You help us hugely to keep this show on air because I want to meet so many more beautiful, wonderful guests, like my guest today, Helen Sernett. Helen is a wonderful woman who has discovered the importance of sleep in her own life. And in turn, she really feels like an evangelist and a sleep whisperer who is going out there to tell the people and the world how important sleep really is. And I could not agree more with her. Helen, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here with
Hmm.
you. And it's your morning, my afternoon. So it's good to talk to you today.
And it's so lovely to connect. Helen, how did you come to the revelation that sleep is of such utter importance?
Well, I wish it had come more easily. Honestly, it was such a big journey for me because I very much grew up in a household where it was kind of sleep was this thing that you had to do, like, but it interrupted the whole course of your day. Like if you could, you'd just stay up all night if if only we could. So I didn't have a lot of respect for sleep and I didn't have any trouble sleeping when I was a kid, but as I got into my 40s, I started to have an enormous amount of trouble sleeping, and so much so that it caused a lot of other problems. So I had gotten to a point where I had a number of healthcare issues. It was kind of a very
Mm.
long laundry list of healthcare issues, mental health issues, and I was completely burnt out from my career. And I wasn't really able to turn any of that around or even start on that path towards recovery without first addressing my sleep. And I'm still on a journey to have better sleep. So
Mm.
it's a process, but it's helped me so much in taking better control over my
Mm.
life that I felt like it might be a good message for your audience to talk about.
Oh, beautiful. Tell us, how much sleep did you get in the past?
Oh, I mean, there were absolutely I used to think I could survive on 5 hours of sleep, 4 and a half, 5 hours of sleep, like, that's all I needed, and I probably slept like that for decades, with an occasional, like, long sleep in the weekend or something like that, so and then, when I started having trouble sleeping so I already had shortened sleep, and that wasn't great, but when I started having trouble sleeping, my biggest issue was with falling asleep and getting my brain to kinda turn off. And that meant that there were nights where I didn't get any sleep,
Mm.
where I'd just be up until 4 a.m., 5 a.m., just not sleeping. And sometimes it would be paying attention to screens. Sometimes it would be tossing and turning, keeping my husband awake. Like it wasn't awesome. It was a really bad time.
Mm. If you were to think back, there are always kind of low-hanging fruit and
Mhm.
very obvious causes. Were you living in a loud household? Was your partner snoring? Were there
Mm.
some very obvious things that actually kept you awake?
I mean, my partner and I are both sort of light snorers occasionally, so I can't really blame that entirely, but, no, it was my own thoughts. For me, it was really just not being able to be still and quiet with myself. And as that became harder and harder to do, as I was further and further along burnout and my mental health was lower and lower, I was less and less able to be alone with myself and quiet in my own head. And that was the main issue, was really having to figure out how to shut my brain off.
Yeah.
And that's how I came up with the idea for sleep lists. So, I wanted someone to just count. I used to have a habit when I was very young of counting myself to sleep. You start at 1 and you just keep on counting until, you're asleep. It usually didn't take me very long. I mean, I think most of the time I got to less than 100. But I was like, if I could just have someone count from like 1 to 500, easy peasy, like outside my own head, it'd be great. Nice, slow rhythm. And I couldn't find that. And so that became the first sleep list. I made it for myself and then I published it as the first episode of my podcast.
And it's actually a very wise thing to do. And it's such a cliche of counting sheep, or counting whatever it is, because our mind can really only focus on one thought at a time. So therefore, if you now focus on one relatively benign task and maybe mundane and maybe repeating and maybe calming task,
Yeah.
then wow, suddenly something happens. And were you
Yeah.
already at that stage aware that your counting was also relaying a counting of your breath? Did your breath already come at
You
that
know,
stage into it?
I've done a fair amount of breath work. I wasn't really thinking about my breaths. I had tried to do something kind of like that, where you do a very even count in, breath in, and then even the same count exhale. And I tend to use odd numbers for those 5 count, and so I was doing these like 10 count breaths, just, 5 in, 5 out, 5 in, 5 out. Um, but what was happening is my anxious thoughts and my depressive thoughts were interrupting that. It wasn't really letting me stick with that count or stay engaged in that breath work. And I needed somebody outside of my head or something outside of my head to do that. So I tried white noise and brown noise and green noise and I think there's other colors, gray. I didn't like any of them. I tried stories, like there's a lot of sleep stories out there where they tell a boring long story and it's supposed to help you go to sleep, but I just got really mad at them for taking so long to get to their point. Uh I didn't like those. And so then after that, I tried sleep meditations, which I had some success with, but then once I knew what was coming next, it wasn't helpful anymore for whatever reason. It just my brain stopped listening and started going into its own thoughts, and I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't staying present with myself in the moment. I was going all over the place. As yogis call it, that monkey brain where you're jumping all over the place and you can't really keep your thoughts from interrupting your flow. And so yeah, that's when the idea for the numbers and yes, of course, we've all heard the expression counting sheep and it's almost a cliche at this point, but I did do an episode on sheep breeds. So there is an episode out there of me listing just a whole bunch of sheep breeds to help you go to sleep. So might as well embrace it.
Well, exactly. I mean, and there are so many different healing and treatment modalities, and not everything is for everyone. We
Yeah.
are all so beautifully unique, and with you providing a different avenue, that might help someone one night, and one night is already a huge gift when it comes to the next day.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, and, it's one day at a time, right? So,
mm,
like, not every night is good, not every day is good,
mm,
So we have good nights and bad nights, but I think being dedicated to it, so staying committed
mm,
to, just trying to get your sleep in is, in the long term, incredibly helpful. Like, it has absolutely helped me learn new skills, get into a whole new avenue of work that I never did before. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't been um working hard on my sleep and really valuing my sleep and using it to heal. But yeah, I want people to have a lot of different tools at their disposal. So I
mm,
want my sleep list to be another tool for people.
mm,
I think that, it's good for us to have a lot of tools because I was at a point where I had 0 tools that worked for me anymore, and that was a really
mm,
bad place to be.
mm,
So the hope is you give people lots of tools that they can use all different times and stages of their lives, and
mm,
then it's available when they need it the most.
mm. And I love it that you're pointing towards this lifespan, because over the lifespan, there are changes as far as our health is concerned, as well as
Mhm.
our need for sleep, our ability to sleep is concerned. In general terms, a baby often sleeps a hell of a lot of time. Some some young mums would say, "No, that's not the case in my little monkey." But hey, that's a different story. So
They
in
sleep
gen,
a lot,
hmm,
just not in very good long durations,
ah,
right? So like
touche.
baby sleep cycles are very short. Whereas we've got this like 90-minute sleep cycle that we like to have, several rounds of all at once. Babies are like, I got this. And they do it all in 2 hours. And then they're like, I'm hungry. I got a poopy diaper. I need something else. So yeah, that's why mamas and babies are never on the same schedule when it comes to sleep.
Exactly. Talk about a hammering of your sleep schedule as a mum, and every
Yes.
young mum will say, "Oh yeah." But I
Yeah.
mean, these are
And
these are maybe the hard times, and
yeah,
predictably hard times. But I think in
yeah.
general terms, yes, there is a tendency to the older we get, the maybe less sleep we need. Sometimes this can be a story we tell each other and tell ourselves. In reality, I'm so enjoying 8.5, 9 hours of good sleep. My goodness, I feel like such a renewed man the next day. So therefore, for me to say, well, I'm getting older, I need less, but no, bugger off. No, I want my sleep. Thank you very much. I know how good it is for me. But
And
you
you
were
you do need it. You do need it more because your body takes longer as you age to do the healing and restoration that you need to do during your sleep. So a lot of times older people fall into a circadian rhythm where they fall asleep earlier
hmm.
or they take naps during the day, both of which are completely acceptable. We love naps.
And again, we might talk about the benefit of a micro sleep or a mini sleep, however long you decide to do so. I think often enough there are, however, also health implications, not just of having too little sleep, but actually health issues resulting in poor sleep. You were
Yeah.
saying you had a bit of a laundry list of burnout symptoms slash your body rebelling and saying, "Hey, enough is enough now." Uh,
Hmm.
did you speak with your GP or your family physician to
Yeah.
see if there are some contributing factors to your poor sleep?
Yeah. And that's another thing. I think physicians are learning this, but there's very little time spent in physician training on the idea of sleep, despite the fact that every human needs to spend about approximately a third or more of their life sleeping.
Mm,
The medical profession doesn't spend a lot of time teaching about what
mm,
happens during sleep to young
mm,
physicians in training. And as a result, when I went to speak to my doctor, she was understanding, thoughtful, kind, but it was all about diet, exercise, and what pills can I give you, right? So this is what she, said, it's a combination of diet, exercise, and, I can give you some pills. It's a bit of a mechanics approach to what is an engineer's problem.
ooh, I like the way you put
Yeah.
it.
So
Okay.
I would say it was, I always think that people should talk to their physicians, especially if they are having trouble sleeping. I mean, I talked at one point with her about going on sleep aids, but the negative impacts of them were, I was aware of long-term use negative impacts. I think it's fine to have a do what you need to do when you're in a crisis, right? But if you need the medication to handle a crisis, your goal should be to get to a point where you're not using the medication because the latest practices and research and standards around disordered sleep is that if you need a sleep medication, that you have disordered sleep.
Mm,
So your goal is to get away from needing that support, that sleep
mm.
aid.
Absolutely. But then again,
Yeah.
there are some clear medical reasons why your sleep is poor. For example, the weight. And I'm not weight bashing. I'm a big man myself, but the bigger we get, the more there is a likelihood that, for example, we develop obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, and which is a very nasty condition in which the back of your throat gets actually quite narrow, especially when you're going off to sleep. So the muscles that keep your breathing pathway open, they collapse. So
Yeah.
ultimately, the end result is you being strangled by your own neck 50, 100 times a night. Literally strangled to the point that the oxygen levels in your blood drop so low that your body gets into a fight and flight syndrome and you wake up and literally because you're about to die. Now, can you
Yeah, the
imagine?
cortisol levels in your brain, you're in this constant panic mode. Your body is the cortisol levels remain high. And when cortisol levels are high, your body doesn't do any of its normal maintenance. It
Mm,
needs those levels to go low for you to do all the normal maintenance. And some of that normal maintenance can help you maintain a weight or lose weight.
mm,
So the process can unfortunately snowball on itself, right? So um
mm.
getting a device like a CPAP machine, getting that prescribed to you, having a sleep study done, that can be really helpful. And get you to a place where you can start having regular sleep and address some of the long-term lifestyle changes that are going to be required to reverse the apnea itself.
Very good.
Yeah.
So this is essentially a very logical reason why you're not sleeping. So
Yep.
therefore, if someone actually tells you, "Oh, you snore," well, that's a really good news because maybe you have just come upon something that is a very manageable and treatable reason for you to have lousy sleep and feel so knackered the next day.
Uh,
And
yeah, and that's one of the things that snoring is something that people do. The thing is if you notice that you're getting 8 hours of sleep, the sort of average 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and you're really trying to do that, and you try to do that for like a week, and you're still dragging, that is a great time to start going, okay, I probably need a sleep study to be done. I don't know, it's not the same in every country, but here, dentists as well as family physicians will provide studies. So sometimes you can get it taken care of at your dentist and talk to your dentist about it, and they can refer you to a sleep specialist if they find that you have obstructions.
beautiful,
So
beautiful.
yeah.
And equally, there are other things. For example, if your thyroid gland here is out of kilter and you have got high levels of thyroid hormones, that can make you quite ratty and quite fast and quite anxious. So there are medical reasons why you might sleep poorly. Medical reasons such as your heart not working properly. You've got heart failure and you need to go 5 times a night to the toilet because your bladder is full. Or you've got cystitis, which might maybe indicate some gut microbiome or bladder microbiome issues that you want to deal with. So there are many, many medical reasons that potentially can contribute to all that. So get yourself a checkup. I think that is a really good first liner thing. But also, I mean, how do you know that you don't sleep well? What do you recommend your clients?
Well, I if they're coming to me and talking to me about sleep, chances are that they've already figured out that they're not sleeping well. But but some people are um blessed with a partner or somebody else in their life that sleeps with them that can be like, "Hey, you're keeping me up at night," or "I'm noticing this about you." And so that's great when other people notice it, but you can take a look at it for yourself. There are a lot of tracking devices nowadays that people wear, wearables like the Apple Watch, the Fitbit. There's beds that actually track your sleep and can tell you how your sleep is doing and give you a sleep score. There's even apps that you can have on your phone, and you slip your phone just right underneath your pillow and it can tell you that. So if you're wondering why you're always tired, or why it seems like you need more coffee than everyone else in the office, or why it seems that you can't stay awake through a movie, or, like if there's something happening where you're like, something's a little off here. You're staying up until 3, 4 in the morning. You can't seem to put down your phone, or, whatever it is. There are devices that you can get to just give yourself a little bit of like is it my sleep? Like, I mean, some of us know, okay, if our phone tells us that we've been on our phone for 20 hours a day, then we're probably not sleeping well.
Touche.
You know?
Sometimes
Um,
the
so
evidence is in front of us, isn't it?
yeah, it's like right there. But if you aren't feeling well, there are a number of things that really number of conditions that benefit significantly from you sleeping well, or that are erased by good sleep, or are
Mm,
reduced by good sleep.
mm,
If you start, like, if you're a habitual blood donor and you go to donate blood and they're like, "Ooh, your blood pressure's kind of high," that is not just like them messing up readings. Like, go talk to your doctor. Um, it's it's really important to do that. That was one of my very, very early indicators, my super high blood pressure, that I
mm,
completely ignored.
mm.
And was like, whatever, you're wrong. You're just a tech. What do you know? I did a lot of that. I did a lot of being like, it's nothing. Before I was like, ooh, it's something. Yeah, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, having issues with being easily fatigued, easily winded. All of that is, generally speaking, issues with sleep, having trouble learning. So like, you got something new going on at work and it's like making you really cranky and frustrated, or you're just snapping at everybody in your family all of a sudden, you probably need more sleep.
And you're pointing it out so importantly. For example, there are many little children who actually have got trouble with allergies, trouble with their immune system. In turn, their tonsils become really, really large.
Mhm.
And there has been over the years a questioning, well, this is actually a normal immune response. Why would you do a tonsillectomy on a child? That's the wrong thing to do. And so people set out to do a study on children before and after tonsillectomies. Was there any difference, etc.? Well, their IQ jumped by 10 points because they suddenly were no longer snoring and having shit sleep, but they actually were more awake, were able to learn, were able to grow, and there was quite a surprise there. And
Yeah.
so I think it is we have got the evidence, but we choose to neglect it because our focus on immediate satisfaction, i.e., let's just scroll another 3 hours whilst I'm lying in bed, is nowadays so much stronger and so much more immediate dopamine. Oh, look, I've got another like on my post. Yay! You don't
Yes.
you get that dopamine now and leave alone tomorrow morning. It's going to be fine. Um, so I think, did you fall into that trap as well?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. No, part of my bedtime routine now is to plug my phone in on my bedside. Now, I think it would be better if I left it out of my bedroom altogether, but
Yeah.
baby steps, I guess. But I plug it into my bedside. It is my alarm clock. And am I have some elderly people in my life, and I am their only, like, care, like, point of next of kin kind of thing. So I do keep my phone near me. But I do plug it in, and if I want to play music, I play it to a speaker that is Bluetoothed into our bathroom, but it is playing from my bedside. So I do not get into that trap of like, "Ooh, let me just open up YouTube Shorts and see like what I can look at," or let me open up Instagram, or let me open up TikTok or whatever. So I don't get tempted to go do that. Um And yeah, I absolutely did. I spent hours and hours and hours,
Mm,
and it was clear. I mean, my husband was like, "Stop this!" Like,
mm.
like it's crazy. And I was like, "But it's the only thing that makes me happy." And
Exactly.
he's like, "Yeah, that's another issue that we should probably discuss maybe after you've gotten some sleep."
Ooh, very
Yeah,
nice. Very nice. Now, you were pointing towards depressive thoughts and anxious thoughts.
yeah.
Did you begin to realize that maybe the lack of movement, or maybe the wrong movements, the wrong exercises in the wrong time of the day might have contributed to that?
I wish that I had been that self-aware. I mean, it's such a simple thing how important movement is, getting
Mm,
outside, even the like expression, like go out and touch some grass. Like it means something. Like you really should just get outside and
mm,
touch some grass. Um, I was not that self-aware. I was also so tired that I probably couldn't have processed any lifestyle changes until I got better sleep anyway. Like I would have failed at them because change is hard and it requires a lot of
mm.
energy to create new habits, and then it requires good sleep to myelinaate those habits. So um yeah, I wish I'd been that thoughtful
Mm,
or receptive,
mm,
intuitive about it. I wasn't. I do need to exercise. That
mm,
is now part of my routine. I've always been kind of like I'll work out sometimes, like I'm,
mm,
a couple times a week maybe, but I actually am at a point in my life now where the best thing for me to do is to incorporate the last 10 minutes of any mealtime is a walk or like a little
mm.
dance party in my kitchen. It's not like, "Oh, let me just take 10 minutes to look at the news," or let me take 10, because it won't ever be 10 minutes to look at the news, on my phone. It'll be 2 hours later.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
And we begin to realize that the muscles in our body are a source of hormones and a source of feedback towards the rest of the body. These are new insights really over the last 5 to 10 years, where we are moving from the kind of, oh, I think movement is good for you, to studies that very clearly prove to you that certain exercises are incredibly helpful to change the way your blood sugar behaves. As
Mhm.
an example, if you eat highly processed food, you put it in your mouth, and pretty much very soon the blood sugar spikes like a missile racing up into the sky. And then your body says, "Oh my God, we need some insulin." So insulin comes out, and then very soon your blood sugar goes down in response to the insulin, and often goes lower. Now, you can imagine that such dramatic spikes in the availability of a nutrient to your body also tells the brain, hang on, we have got a glut. Oh, no, 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 we've got a famine. And so your brain will maybe become quite ratty, quite anxious, it will change with regards to in relation to this rapid change in the blood sugar. Now, if you were to do some just 2 minutes of exercise. That could be some leaning push-ups or some squats, anything that moves large muscles. Um, a short period of that will already open the receptors for sugar
Mhm.
in your muscles.
Yeah,
And
it
so
makes you
it's
less insulin resistant.
exactement. So here you are, suddenly the body has got a number of avenues where it can put the sugar straight into the muscles as glycogen and build it up there. Brilliant. So it doesn't go on your love handles. Or it can, if you don't do that, well, the muscles are closed. Okay, where do we go? Okay, let's go to the liver and we make some fat. And we'll take it from there. So these are
Yeah,
the
so it
very
becomes
practical
really
things.
yeah, it becomes really important. I think it's really interesting. I've been learning more about some of the Native American cultures
Mhm.
in and among those of us in the United States. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is that dance and movement, like the words in Native vocabularies, are often very similar to or are the same words as that for medicine.
Uh,
So I feel like though it is very recent that like our Western scientific world has figured out that movement is important, um, there's a lot of cultures that have known this for a long time, and it's
mm,
just that we've been this like knowledge based we've converted from an industry like a physical manual labor to knowledge based labor society, and in doing that we're like, oh, it's sure it's fine to just sit still for 8 hours, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Um, when in fact, there have been cultures all along that have known that movement is medicine and it's super important to
mm,
move your body, and it's more
mm,
efficient to build muscle. Your
mm.
body works better if it has more muscle. So yeah.
Also, I mean, if we were to think about your take on or your drive to actually address the problems in your life. There was anxiety and depression coming early on. And we know that we actually, when we move our body, we can reduce the levels of anxiety. And when we move our body outside, there is often a spike in vitamin D, and we get
Hmm.
this kind of positivity coming through. And that's very, very true. And if we then add actually some sensible nutrition, ooh,
Yep.
suddenly things start moving. Did you notice a relation between certain diets, certain food intakes, and sleep?
One of the symptoms that I had, as I started to gain quite a list of symptoms, was that I became really, really sensitive to a lot of foods that I had never had a problem with before. So I became gluten sensitive, I became dairy sensitive, I was having, those were the two big ones, but then, like, also there was just, like, a whole weird list of foods, including water sometimes, that could just send me into heartburn, so that was really annoying. So I was sick,
Mhm,
and food and I were not friends for a little bit, or I was trying really hard. I love to cook, I love to be creative in the kitchen, so I would address each one of these new restrictions as sort of a creative challenge, but it was very frustrating. Um, and I do think that that was in part because I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. So I had a lot of inflammation. So one of the great things that sleep does for us is it's like I said, your cortisol levels are down. It allows all of the hormones to happen in your body that send the signals to clean everything out, get rid of all the toxins. It's actually the point in time when your brain can be cleaned out. Um, you can't really clean out your brain when you're not sleeping. Your brain would just, the brain blood barrier makes that not possible unless you're sleeping. And so then you're just like, okay, it's safe now. Like, we're not gonna do anything
mm,
crazy. You can come on up and, like, maintenance crew, please come take away all these toxins. And then at the same time, during different points in the sleep cycle, your body is healing
mm.
itself, cleaning things out, uh, managing myelination, all of that stuff. So all of that to say that as I started to sleep better, I suddenly could eat things that I had been sensitive to previously.
Mm.
And it was quite a joy to stop taking lactose pills. I mean, I still don't. I mean, I'm getting older, and as older humans, like, maybe we just shouldn't be drinking a ton of milk, like straight from the cow. But I do think that I'll never be able to, like, tolerate milk the way that I did when I was a 10-year-old ever again, but I can tolerate it fine now in foods and cheeses and stuff like that,
Mm.
so I am very glad to not have that out of my life anymore.
I bet, and I'm not a betting man, but I would put money on it, that you have healed your gut microbiome and that you had some leaky gut that was clearly contributing to all that without you actually knowing, with you addressing the sleep, with you addressing some of the stress in your life, with you
Yep.
changing your lifestyle, you have started to heal. And the sheer fact that those food allergies first, or sensitivities first, raised their ugly head and then subsided tells me that things have improved in your body. And it's the
Yeah.
beautiful
And
thing. It's take it as a marker that you have
yeah.
done the right things, that you have made progress. That's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm super happy about it. I have a lot less inflammation and joint pain issues
Mm,
now too, which was
mm,
another problem that I was having. I was having huge issues with my shoulders every time I
mm,
try to lift, and like my knees. So yeah,
mm,
I definitely have, like, movement has helped, and movement has helped my sleep. Sleep has helped my movements. So I feel like we're our bodies are these closed systems, but they're very complex. And so
oh yeah.
when you start to make the right progress in one area,
Yeah.
generally speaking, it helps a lot of other areas. And I still have a long
Beautiful.
way to go. I know I have a long way to go. Um, because yeah, when you start to talk to gastroenterologist people and people that are like the types of doctors that are like going to ask you, "Hey, how's
Mm,
your poop been lately?" Those kind of doctors, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I have more work to do in that area. Like I could do better." And I've just started incorporating a really heavy vegetable diet. So like
mm,
vegetables first, vegetables forward diet. I still eat a lot of animal-based proteins,
mm.
but I eat my salads first. I incorporate, spinach into my eggs and tomatoes, and like so
Nice.
I've
Nice.
been doing more and more of that. And that's been an interesting journey. It's been about a month now that I've been working on that diet change, and
Mm,
ups and downs. But no, it is a journey, and I don't think I could do those changes as well if I wasn't sleeping well. Like it's
mm.
just really hard to make changes when you feel empty and cranky and angry at the world.
But then again, you have to make some start somewhere. You have to take the first step. And there are actually a number of steps, but be clear
Yeah.
in which direction your overall path is going and which steps can you take right now to actually get yourself a little bit closer to that goal. And I think that's where a systematic approach through functional medicine, combined with life coaching, combined with a structure plan, comes really in so well.
Yeah.
So,
It is really interesting because I mean, if I were to say what was the first step, as much as I say that nothing could really be addressed until I slept well, I was talking to my therapist and she was like, "What would it take for you to take a break from work?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like I've got a vacation coming up in 6 months." And she was like, "That's not a vacation coming up. I mean, take a break." Fully stop and take a break, like for, like, I don't know, how long do you think? And I was like, well, I probably wouldn't stop being stressed out about work for about 4 weeks. So I guess I'd need a month. And she's like, okay, double that. And
hmm,
that's when, so that was the first big decision. And that was to stop work. And so I took a leave of absence, a medical leave of absence. And then, ultimately, I left my position, but it was a huge step. It was a really, really, really hard step to take. I had panic attacks over the idea that
hmm.
I was gonna be taking this step, but I also had panic attacks over the idea that I had to go to work. So, like, I was just panicking a lot.
Okay.
I did not have a regulated nervous system at all. And so, yeah, so I that was really the big first step, and then it was like and then I did dedicate, like, just months and months and months to sleeping whenever I felt like sleeping, like
Hmm,
middle of the day, any moment, like anytime I felt like sleeping. And I called it my convalescence.
hmm.
Like I referred to it as a convalescence, which is, like maybe you use the word more frequently, but in America, nobody uses the word convalescence unless they're talking about like old tuberculosis, like sanitariums.
Right.
It's like go to where you go to convalesce. But I really held on to that word because it felt like if I didn't, the only other progress that could be made was like further down the depressive, terrible,
Mm, mm,
anxious rabbit
mm,
hole.
mm,
And so I had to believe that I could heal inside my brain. And so I did. I just slept anytime. And what I figured out from sleeping whenever and wherever I wanted to, and needed to, and
mhm,
whenever it felt right, was that I could get better. Like
mm.
I could have more minutes and hours in the day that had fewer depressive thoughts. Like that's the level of like
Nice,
tiny little bits of progress we were making at first, but
nice.
they were bits and pieces of progress and they were steps forward, and that I can now look back at them and be like, yeah, I did that and I did heal myself a lot. Um, did I also know that I was in crisis mode and need medication? Yes, I took some medication. It was important. Am I now tapering off that medication?
Mm,
Yes. Is that going well? Yes. So I think being good about sleep is was critical, and I needed so much of it because I was changing so much in my life
mm.
that I needed a lot of sleep. And I also had damaged myself so badly by ignoring
Mm.
signs for years that I needed help.
And I love it. I
Yeah.
love it that you say that. Because do you really think you can have a lifetime of pizza, stress, uh, lots of challenges, trauma, add it all up, shake it up a little bit, and now you sleep twice for 8 hours and everything is healed? Really? You really think that works? So no. So I love the way that you're actually phrasing it, reconvalescence. Yep, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Uh,
It was this long convalescence and it
mm,
felt really weird. It
mm,
felt so weird to be like, I'm on my convalescence, but
mhm.
it was necessary to
Mm,
just rest. To
beautiful.
just really rest, yeah.
And the same, maybe if there are young mums that are listening here today, could you just imagine that you're completely depleted after giving birth to this beautiful 4 kilogram of joy? But can you imagine that, like a garden bed, you are completely denuded after a beautiful summer and autumn of growing, and that you now need to rest, that you need fertilizer, that you need mulch, that you need all kind of things to actually replenish the soil? The same is
Yeah,
so much for so many of us. We are depleted from a lifetime of stress, of chaos, of poor choices, ultimately. And there we are. So it's an opportunity to listen to our
yeah.
bodies and see, okay, why am I creaking here? Why do I have sound effects when I get up from the couch? There are actually, your body is trying to tell you something. And often enough, sleep is such an integral part of that healing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, Helen, tell us about the sleep lists.
Oh,
What is
oh,
that really about?
yeah. So, as I mentioned before, it is the podcast that I started because it was the tool that I needed that I couldn't find on the internet, and so I decided to make it. And it was really something that I made for myself. We have 3 seasons out now of 6 episodes. I'm working on season 4, and I'm working to start incorporating more sleep tips and tools, like,
Mm,
and truths and facts, into season 4, so stay tuned for that. But, it is me reciting a list, a single category list, and sometimes they're alphabetical, sometimes they're randomized order, sometimes they're reverse alphabetical, chronological, numerical. Anyway, it depends on the topic. But I recite the list at about 60 beats per minute, which is the resting heart rate and the average resting heart rate. And I put a little soothing soundtrack to the end of it, like underneath it all. And so you get a 15-minute to 45-minute to an hour, depending upon the size of the list,
mm.
tool that you can listen to, turn on, put in earbuds, however you need to, so that you can help yourself fall asleep in the evenings
Oh,
or in
beautiful.
the mornings if you do shift work, whenever you need
Nice.
to fall asleep.
Beautiful. Helen, where can people find you?
Yeah, they'll find Sleep Lists at sleeplists.com. So it starts with an S and ends with an S, Sleep Lists, plural. And also anywhere that you get your podcasts. And if there's somewhere that you get podcasts and you can't find it, contact me on the website and I will get that RSS feed going. It really is super easy on my end. It's just that there's so many streaming services that I've tried to get on as many of them as I can. I think I'm on about 25 of them, but every once in a while there's new ones that come up. So
Sure.
let me know and I'll get you there.
Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast. And if you have not already, please press the like and subscribe button down there. Tell your friends about our shows, the respective shows that we have got, Neff Inspiration and Sleep Lists. Go out there, share the news, and let's work all together to make us new versions of ourselves that are more resilient, more full of joy, and full of life, because then we can model a different human to the people around us. And I truly believe we can make this world a better place, one interview, one impact, one action at a time. Helen
One
Sernett,
sleep.
one sleep at a time. You're so right. You're so right. Helen, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun, and I hope you had a good time too.
Oh, absolutely. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Trying